Oh, that looks good. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming. I am the outlier here. I am not a production farmer. Art called me and said he'd talked to, I think, Mike Olzak, and Mike had recommended me, and I said I'm not a production farmer. I'm a truck farmer. I've been farming a long time, but I'm not selling anything. And he was a little hesitant. There was a long pause on the phone, and then he asked me what I was doing, and he said, well, it might be interesting. So here I am. So I hope I have something for you. Back, forward, there it is. There's our farm. We have 11 acres. Where's my pointer? My pointer's not working. So anyhow, 11 acres, 10 of them are in hay, and right in the center in the top, trying to get this, there it is. Right in here is our truck garden, and over here we have an orchard. I went the wrong way. There it is. Here's a little closer. There's the high tunnel right there, some storage. And we have some steep land in here, so we actually have some terraces there. There's our huge high tunnel. He's talking about, last guy was talking about 30 by 95. Ours is 15 by 30. That's the total of our high tunnel. This started out actually as a greenhouse, and then I'm literally over the hill from the Penn State trial gardens and such, and I was over there for Ag Progress Days, and they had a high tunnel tour, and I went and met Mike, and that was it. Within 6 months, I had this converted to a high tunnel, and I've been in touch with Mike ever since, and we've talked about doing different things. There is from the side. This is just recently, all our tomatoes are down, and we're getting ready. You can see the covers in there. We're getting our stuff ready for the fall. We do two plantings. We do plantings start in February and March, and then run that through August, and then we tear what isn't done out and replant in August, and then replant in August, and then we harvest through whatever the weather allows us to do. So we either eat everything in the garden, in the high tunnel that's there, or we'll lose some of it. And this is what we recondition our high tunnel with. This is my neighbor. He's got 5 horses. He beds his horses in sawdust, and so he pulls the sawdust out with the manure and the urine in it. He puts it in this field over here beside the little, where am I here? There it is. Beside the barn. This is the compost pile. What you can't see here is right behind this is a stream, and this property actually is in a swamp. It's like a swamp. If it's not, we can only get in here to get this twice a year when it's dry in the spring or the fall. If not, you'd go into the axles with a tractor and equipment to get that out. And because of that, we don't have to. This doesn't have to be turned. The water just comes right up through the pile of manure and turns it into black gold within 3 or 4 months. And so the other thing that happens with this, and we're going to do potentially some study on this, is we have very little weed out of this. Art had asked me about this. We have very little weed, and we think there are 2 reasons possibly why that's true. One is that it composts very, very well, and it gets pretty hot. The other is we think that because there's so much water content oozing up through this, that some of the weed seed actually rots, and it isn't there. It doesn't mature. So we go down and get this, and that's what we use. This is the start of our fall crop, just a couple little things that we planted and got started. You can see the loops where we put ropes through those and then create little micro climates for the fall. These are actually glass globes for old mercury vapor lights from a factory that we got for free, and we use them for little cloches. That's our leftover from the summer. That's our parsley. that went wild. So I went to I decided you guys might be interested in see what the nutrient levels of all this is. So this is the nutrient level of the compost pile, and you see pretty good, pretty high. And there's the rest of the analysis. The one thing they missed in this, I had forgotten to ask them to do it, was the full. I wanted to know. I thought you might be interested to know what the salts are in this and what the total nitrogen is. So I had them go back and do it again. This was the salts in the compost, 0.57, a little high. And then I had them do the compost, the property soil, just as a comparison, the vegetable garden beside the high tunnel and the high tunnel, and you can see what the total nitrogen percentages are in those three, or those four segments. And so this was after we had reconditioned the soil and had started planting, this is what the nutrient levels were in the high tunnel. So, you know, we're only putting about 2 inches of compost on it, but it's really pushing the nutrients up. I think that's why we get away without side dressing or doing any other nutrients, because we got more than what we need. It's free to us, so putting a little more than we need on doesn't hurt us. Right? And then you can see down here, the salts are only 0.29 in the high tunnel, so real good. It's below 0.4, so we're really hanging in there really well. The soil, and you guys talk about weighing and checking all this stuff, and as a production, you have to do that. We never do that. To me, it's intuitive. I do what looks good, and when we start seeing good crop production, then we just know we're doing the right thing as far as we're concerned, right? So. And then this is the vegetable garden. You can see the nutrients are less, but this is after the season, and it hasn't been reconditioned yet. So everything's dropping off a little bit. I was curious that the salts were as high as they were out in the vegetable garden. I didn't think they'd be that high, because that's actually higher than the soil, and that's the property soils. You see. Pretty low on nitrogen, and that was pretty low on nitrogen, and then you can see even the salts are 0.4. So, and just so you know, we can produce some stuff. That was one day picking for about 2 hours in August of this year. Heirloom tomatoes and a little bit of everything. The only thing that we use extra fertilizer for is the corn. We side dress the corn. Okay, any questions? Okay.
Nice job. Thank you, John. I was a little apprehensive when Mike suggested him for this talk because, well, he's not a farmer. But he really is. And I was so intrigued by only horse manure? Wait a minute. But I guess the numbers show it, so you can do it. Put it in a swamp. Don't tell anybody from EPA that.
Do I?
He's got to do it first.
Okay.
Oh, he has to do one at a time.
Okay. I'm Nicole Shelley. I'm from Godshaw Farm. We're in the Lehigh Valley of Pennsylvania, and we have we grow on 1 acre of vegetable production. We have some ancillary areas that we use as well, but just vegetables is just 1 acre. Okay, so we do organic farming on less than 1 acre. It's exactly 1 acre. I don't know where that came from. With compost only. So we kind of just have a hands-off approach. We just use compost. We don't use a lot of products. We just use new plants all the time. We constantly, have successions of plants coming, and we focus on crops that are really popular in our area. So especially in the high tunnel, it's good real estate there. So, and we've built really simple, efficient systems, especially for nutrient system with the compost. And I'll tell you a little bit about that later, like exactly how much we add and how we figured that out. And, you know, we grow high value, high quality vegetables using single, double, and triple cropping. So pretty much how people grow in a high tunnel is how we grow everywhere on our farm. So we just keep doing successions, new plants. As soon as something's done, then we get rid of it. So the tomatoes, these are actually those hybrid marriage. Is that what you call them? I call them fake heirlooms. But they're really, I mean, we grow a lot of those because they just do really well. And then spinach, we do a lot of in the spring and fall. And carrots is one of our biggest crops that we do. And we do like a really early crop and then a fall crop of carrots. So before we got to our farm, we did an urban farm on a half acre in Philadelphia. So this was like in 2005, we built this really weird in between a high tunnel and a low tunnel. You know, I didn't get into farming to be a soil scientist. I'm more of like an artist, but I want to do things right. So I was just trying to read like how much compost should we be putting down here and like getting soil tests every year. And back then there wasn't a lot of information on farming on this size land. You can find some now, but I would just read these garden books and they were like, just put compost down, put compost down. So that's what I did. I put a lot of compost down on this half acre, and it was really too much. Like that truckload was like way too much for that half acre, which I know now. I didn't know then. So we just put way too much compost down. We even started having problems with like germination because there was so much compost. So, the plants grew fine, but it was just too much. So then we moved to our farm. We still do compost. This is aged mushroom compost, and we still get a truckload, but we have an acre now. And what we figured out, we worked with the extension agents, and they had a workshop, and they were saying that you shouldn't ever add compost. It's just a waste. They said that you're just feeding the weeds. So we stopped using compost for a year. So, and that, it was really, especially brassicas we found did really bad. It was not a good year. We noticed the difference, but we cut back. So now we add compost to half of the field every year. So, and we do that in the high tunnels also. So every other year for a high tunnel. And then we measure it. You know, everybody says put an inch down. So what's an inch? So, you can calculate the size of the truck, and then you can calculate the size of, a tractor, or if you use a wheelbarrow or a bucket, however. So you can just, do calculations so you know how much you're putting down. So then in our high tunnels, we grow all 4 seasons, every other year with the compost. We do 3 to 4 successions, and we select crops. There's only a few, like 6 or 7 that we grow in our high tunnels, the most high value, and we do rotations. So we have 3 high tunnels, so we can kind of do a 3-year rotation. And I can show you some of how we do the rotations. So These are just some pictures of our high tunnels. You know, we do tomatoes, and then sometimes we rototill like right around now, and then we just kind of keep planting. Like sometimes we'll even put the compost on top, and then we'll put down the drip line, and then we'll put plastic on top of that, and then the earthworms just work it down, or like it'll get rototilled in the next time. So February, we start around in January. In January, we plant transplants under lights. They go out in like February. We do spinach, kale, head lettuce, and scallions. And then we harvest those like in April. And we're also getting some carrots out. So then we're transplanting again in April, cucumbers, tomatoes, basil. And those things, I mean, basil we have problems with now with downy mildew, but like we'll get one crop out of it now. But the cucumbers and the tomatoes, we just keep doing successions. We rip out the old ones after the cucumber beetles like attack them. So then, you know, we'll just get rid of the older plantings and plant new ones. Okay. So then, you know, May we transplant more tomatoes, peppers. We keep going until like July with tomato transplants. September 1st is when we see carrots for fall. And for like later fall, we transplant kale, head lettuce, and scallions in October. And then in December and January, we seed carrots for like a really early crop, like in end of April or May. That's it.
All right. Any questions for Shelley? One of the statements I should make is that she lives very close to Kennett Square, right? Not too far.
Right. Yeah, our Philadelphia farm we got it from Kennett Square.
Yeah. But the mushroom compost is, the closer you live to where the mushrooms are grown, the cheaper the mushroom compost is.
That's right.
So because I live in Pittsburgh, that has to be shipped clean across the state to get to my house. So I don't know if it'd be feasible as far as expenses. How much do you pay for the mushroom compost?
Half of it is trucking, but it costs about $500 a year. So that's our fertility for the whole.
$500 a year. Not too bad. Not too bad.
Come up, we'll give you some horse compost.
Horse compost. There you go. Better not say that. You won't have any left for yourself.
Oh no, I have mine.
Okay.
Okay, we have a lot of different viewpoints here. My dad did make a good statement. You know, when it comes to fertility in your high tunnels, it's so variable because it's all what you have to your expense and how much it costs. Obviously, we're always looking at the dollar figure when we're talking about reconditioning our soils in our high tunnels. So you have to think about what's available to you, obviously. So it's pretty subjective. But what we have all come down to the same conclusion to is compost, mushroom manure, any type of manure, any type of organic matter is a good thing in high tunnels. Whenever you're building a high tunnel, we always like to put our high tunnels on our absolute worst soil. Okay, so you don't want to pick the best soil on the farm and put a high tunnel up on it. I mean, you can, but the reason why I say this is organic matter decomposes so much faster in a high tunnel. So you might not have a fantastic crop the first year, but you can amend that soil so fast in the next coming years that it only makes sense for long-term production on your land. Okay, now I don't have any pictures of actually what we put on our in our high tunnels. I just have pictures of our high tunnels in production. So I'll tell you what we do. You can see pictures for proof that it works, and go from there. We have two different types of systems in our high tunnels. We have just regular right in the soil high tunnels, and we also have raised bed that we built, permanent raised beds in our high tunnel. we are we're not certified organic. So we are able to use synthetic fertilizers or regular fertilizers, petroleum-based. But I refuse to put petroleum-based fertilizers in the high tunnels. I never. I can, but I never do. It's always compost, and that's it. Sometimes, depending on the crop, I will fertigate, but it always depends on the crop. There's a lot of crops like lettuce, it doesn't take much fertilizer, okay? So there's no injecting of any fertigation at all, okay? So all depends on the crop you're putting in there, but we don't put any petroleum-based fertilizers because I always worry about the EC level in our soil, which is your salts. That's it. So we spread compost, manure, composted manure, preferably, weed seed free, try to. It's not always perfect. Mushroom manure, if you have it, is an extremely good option. Okay, we have one Haygrove tunnel, and believe it or not, we managed to get our tractor and plastic layer in the Haygrove. When we do it this way, I am able to put fertilizer right under the bed. So when I say fertilizer, I mean chicken manure. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll put pelleted chicken manure in that hopper, which is, what's that called? Revita, right, Chris? 323, I think it is. So therefore, then we do put fertilizer in the high tunnel that way. Of course, if you're laying it by hand, it's much more difficult. Okay, that's what it looks like about 30 days after we were laying out plastic. Put the transplants in there. This is fall production this past year, fall of 2017. Or no, I'm sorry, that was spring of 2017. This is just a picture of broccoli in the high tunnel, strung up. No fertigation, no petroleum-based fertilizers, only compost. Okay, these are pickles, trellis pickles. Like I said, there's rare circumstances when I do fertigate. In this instance, this is a very high-valued crop, taking leaf samples and fertigating as necessary. These are our raised beds. Again, Revita 323, which is chicken manure, pelleted chicken manure. That's the only thing that goes into these beds. Every time we renovate a bed, which is 6 times a year, each bed gets renovated 6 times a year, and we're putting about 25 to 50 pounds per bed, per renovation. There's another picture of those same beds. We'll also put soilless media in with that to get good seed to soil contact, because about 9 out of 10 crops that we grow in these beds are direct seeded, not transplanted, unlike the basil is transplanted. Okay, spinach. Okay, this is just a raised bed. This is actually not in the high tunnel, but I stuck it in here because it's really pretty. This is actually in the field, so I put this here to show you that this was mushroom manure, straight mushroom manure. That's it. Anybody has any questions, they can ask me.
Okay, any questions? Any questions for any of our panelists that you might have come up with? Yes, sir, in the back.
Do you have any problems with salts with the mushroom manure?
Any problems with salts with the mushroom manure, Shelley?
No.
It's aged, and we don't have problems with the salts. I mean, when we did get it tested, the numbers are a little high, but it doesn't seem to affect the crops.
I'm pretty sure I've seen when you buy mushroom manure that you can get aged or fresh, right?
This is aged.
So aged might make a difference for you there.
Can you use something like magnesium sulfate, gypsum, to balance out the soil?
No.
I've never heard of that.
No, I wouldn't. I would just leach it.
What I've done before, if I've noticed some in the high tunnel, I'll turn the overhead sprinklers on and leave them on for 24 hours in the winter. We have enough well water, we can do that.
Oh,
So
move.
that helps.
Art, move over.
Oh,
here.
Art.
Am I in your way? Wait,
No, you're.
You're in the way of the camera.
Okay, any other questions?
Hey, David. You notice how you listen
Yeah,
to him,
there's
but
one
you didn't
question in
listen
the
to
back.
you.
Some people might say like, oh, if you got that much organic matter in the facility, you're gonna eventually have a phosphorus problem. What are you guys experiencing?
Have a what problem?
Phosphorus.
Oh,
She-
phosphorus.
Yeah. Do you want to address that?
No, not me.
We saw
cro-
soil tests. I don't know.
My crops are doing well. I haven't seen that.
Right.
In your raised beds,
Yeah.
they're basically 100% compost. I mean,
Yeah.
do you not have a phosphorus issue there?
I have not seen any phosphorus issue at all. No.
What's the
The-
magic sauce?
The raised beds are all overhead irrigated. I don't know if that makes a difference.
Yeah.
It's interesting, man, 'cause that is what you hear. You have a phosphorus problem, but yeah, because his beds are raised. I've been into the tunnels a bunch, and they're always just spot on. All the crops just look so nice, and it's nice and neat. There's no weeds in those things. Something you didn't mention, but basically there's no weeds in those tunnels at all. Nice setup.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we're right.
We're early.
Yeah, we're early.
Till quarter up.
Oh, we can have more questions. Never mind, more questions. Yes.
What media, the last speaker, what were you putting in your raised beds again? What were you using, what media?
Okay, we were using Revita, which is a chicken manure, pelleted chicken manure, putting that on, and then putting on just regular Pro Mix.
Are you mixing it?
Yeah, so then you make a slit in the bag and you drag it the whole length of the bed. I mean, put about 5 bags at every renovation, and then rake it out smooth.
Ah.
And the only reason why we do that is because over time the peat moss degrades, because in the high tunnel it degrades very quick, and you're left with a lot of perlite. And I don't ever till those beds, never.
Oh, really?
Never till them. So over time, the perlite has built up on the top. So as it degrades, you have to get that seed to soil contact. So you have to put that soilless media. But that's the only thing. I mean, I have put compost on there, but it's almost impossible to get absolutely weed-free compost. Okay, so I know the soilless media is super expensive.
Yeah.
But we're producing about, on average, we're going, $1,000 gross profit per bed per crop, and we're getting 6 per bed. So
Leave the numbers to me. I'm doing a talk this afternoon on high tunnel economics, so
But
we'll
it's-
talk all about the numbers.
yeah, it's worth it. I mean, it's yes.
Is anybody else here having trouble with nut sage coming in with?
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Because the sage is not killed by the high temperature of the compost?
absolutely.
We have nutsedge was in the field when we built the greenhouse, and we're putting 2x10s and filling them up with compost, and still to this day we get nutsedge coming up.
You and Sam D are having a good time.
No. There's no chemicals at all ever sprayed in those high tunnels.
Yeah, no,
In those raised beds, never. All pulled by hand. When you have that little bit of weeds.
Yeah, it's not that much.
Your employees are in there all the time, so it's like you're not only going in there to pick, you're going in there to pull weeds. Like you keep it clean, and that's just part of it.
Okay.
Do you grow tomatoes in your high tunnel?
We used to. We haven't in about 3 years, but I'm going to do it this year. Yeah, so I mean, yes, we have done it in the past. But we just pulled away from there because, I don't know, we were seeing a lot of spider mite issues, and the whole beneficials I haven't really learned a whole lot about it up till now. So now I'm ready to tackle it again.
Okay.
All right,
There's one.
one more.
Why were you tying up broccoli?
It just gets so big. You can't walk through, you know. So, because in those tunnels, in order to maximize square footage, we lay all the plastic by hand. And when we lay it by hand, there's literally a walkway
I
of
saw
about
that.
7 or 8 inches. Okay, so whenever you plant your plants, I mean, it's nothing like the field. So in order to have an actual walkway, I just pound stakes in and I string it like tomatoes, and I get those leaves to go like this. It's all about square inches in a high tunnel.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for our panel. I appreciate their time and effort.
Thanks for having me.